Especially with rich, snotty, and especially beautiful women practically throwing themselves at us. Yes, traveling by car is certainly safer, but painful all the same. Mona's smell is dangerously small. The weakest it has been in days. I find myself sniffing for it. Trying to search for the quickly vanishing scent that enchants me so deeply. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to leave her. I should have dragged her with us, forcing her to at least sit in the car. I don't like leaving Mona with Ray also, even though he's probably not going to do anything, anyways. Ray can be a hermit sometimes, staying in his room for hours doing who knows what. The lush landscape around us, filled with tall trees, prickly bushes, and many colorful flowers, fades into a concrete road. Trimmed grass, and stubby buildings as we reach the edge of our territory. We own practically the entire forest, earning both privacy and a great place to hunt. Rumors swirl around the surrounding area, some of which we start ourselves, scaring most people into fearing the forest more than death itself. We're lucky Mona never heard those rumors, for then we would have a lot of explaining to do. The huge city looms before us after we reach the edges of the suburbs and inch along the interstate. Cars multiply, many old and beaten. Trudging home from work. Suddenly, the T word begins to develop. The word I hate more than anything. Traffic. Bumper to bumper, never-ending torture erupts in the blink of an eye, the overcrowded roads stretching endlessly. Our destination seems to grow farther and farther away as we sit, unmoving. Ages seem to pass as Jake slowly maneuvers us through the throng of cars and trucks. Why does everyone have to use this road? Why can't we just use our wolf form? Once again, I must say that I hate cars. Mona's frightful story from a few days ago only reiterates this point. Exactly as I predicted, the sky is a majestic, sapphire blue that is quickly morphing into a deep black by the time we reach the towering building, climbing almost 15 stories in height. At the top is the famed Moonlight nightclub, where you get a perfect view of the beautiful moon every Saturday. We slide out of the car with grace, our movements fluid and enchanting, and the valet driver takes our car to the parking lot. It is time for us to bring the life to the party. The only thing is that right now, I feel dead. Without Mona's aroma and my usual confidence, everything seems dark. And Ray, I don't even know what to think about him. I wave away all doubt as I reach the 15th floor from the stairway. Trying to focus at the matter at hand. The feisty wolves are right beyond the glass doors already, waiting for me. Jake shoots me a sympathetic look as I reach forward to grasp the handle. "You're dead," are the last words I hear before doom strikes. A plethora of lovely ladies crowd around me instantly, something I have grown to handle. Many new faces are around, made up into oblivion. I instantly smile, trying desperately to veil the sudden discomfort underneath. I used to be right at home under these admiring gazes, but now they scare me as if I am a deer caught in the headlights. A red sequined dress clinging to a truly magnificent body slides my way, home to a nasty minx with deep chocolate eyes and voluptuous, plump red lips. "I've been waiting for you," she says coaxingly, parting the women like they were the Red Sea, and then pulling me into a heartfelt embrace. "I told you not to hug me when I'm not yours. You know the rules," I tell Meryl angrily, and she laughs. "But Xavier, when I see you surrounded by those truly pitiful girls. I just have to save you," she purrs like a kitten, pulling at my arm. I frown. "Is tonight auction night? For I am going to make you mine again," she adds. About that, I trail off as she tugs ferociously on my hand, pulling me into the shadows. Her body is pressed against mine as we are suddenly in a corner, annoying me more than alluring me like she hoped. "How about I buy you for life?" she offers a simpering grin. "I could offer a couple million. You ask me that every time I come to Moonlight," I complain. She stares at me intently, as if she is seeing me in a whole different light. "Are you okay, Xavier?" she asks worriedly. Putting a soft hand to my forehead. "You just seem different. More tired than usual." "Actually, I am tired," I admit, surprised that Meryl can be so perceptive. "I have an announcement to make," I shrug away from her, heading back to my rich, adoring fans with increasing terror. "Doom is upon me. Everybody, gather round," I quickly call, causing the crowd to thicken. Meryl forces herself to the front, watching me suspiciously. Wes gives me a thumbs up as I speak. I am retiring from the bachelor auctions today, I emit the dreaded words, causing anger to ripple within the group. Shouts erupt through the room. Every person staring at me with sad and somewhat furious eyes. Meryl is starting to cry, tears flooding like crystals down her porcelain cheeks. Why, Xavier? She asks, flinging herself onto me. With carefully hidden disgust. I pluck her off of me and put her back with the rest of them. Because, I look to the sky, tinted with dark purple hues. There, hidden in the shadows of the night, is a perfect full moon, shining like the sun. It is so beautiful, making me try to remember the last time we had such a spectacular moon. Why would Ray want to miss out on a wonderful night like this? Suddenly, the pieces come together in my head, making a whole. Fear fills my thoughts, blocking all else. Tonight is the perfect night for an awakening. Everything is forgotten as I scrunch my nose slightly, wanting the slightest bit of a scent. Just to let me know how she is doing. Xavier, the clamoring of voices, seemingly far away even though they are truly very close, reaches my ear. I ignore them completely, finally snatching the bit of fragrance I have desired so. Tinged with fear and distraught. The one scent eliminates my doubts once and for all. Mona has disobeyed me. Ray has betrayed me. She has, or will be awakened. Anger pollutes my blood, fury in my features. I have to go, I nearly snarl. Trying to race away from them before I morph. Wes and Yi see the beast in my eyes with fright, trying to hold the girls back. However, one girl breaks from the crowd, running in her red sequins over to me as I push the elevator button. I tap my shoe impatiently. Elevators are another thing I hate. Xavier, Meryl calls, clinging to me like glue. I impatiently try to push her away. Not now. Meryl, I can't hold back much longer. The anger is changing me, working through my system, eliminating all. Tell me what's going on, she demands, staring at me angrily. You want to know, I ask sarcastically, completely lost now to the devil boiling inside. Fine then. Knowing how crazy I am. I morph into a werewolf directly in front of her. Knowing exactly what is going to happen next. There is a blood-curdling scream as I race into the stairwell. Elevators are crap. They never get you where you want to be on time. I zoom, my figure a blur, down the stairs, out the door, and into the street. My legs are pounding so hard that I can barely breathe. It is only a matter of seconds before I'm out of the city, and into our territory. I am traveling unbelievably fast, faster than I ever thought I could run. Just a few more seconds, the scent growing irresistibly stronger and repugnant from the terror, and I am in the bushes right before a small hill. Two figures are standing at the top, one short, and the other majestically tall. The moon is huge behind them, clear as can be, casting pure white light upon them. What I just gave you was an injection of spear blood, Ray informs the short girl as she stands awkwardly beside him. Traces of red in her hair can be plainly seen, her frown faintly evident. Ray. I don't feel so good, her relaxing voice, tinged with pain and anguish, speaks as she falls onto the ground. Ray immediately bends to be by her side, concern in his movements. There will be 2 hours of this, and then it will be all better. Don't worry. I'm here for you, he practically begs, taking her hand and holding it close. I feel a spike of jealousy at the way he is pulling it so near to his heart. When the first scream rips through the night. Mona writhing on the green grass. I jump up from my hiding place, anger forgotten. Mona, I yell, racing over to her. I almost trip over the rocks and stones, introducing a quality most unlike me. I am never clumsy. Ray stares at me, horrified, as I check her pulse. She is screaming almost constantly now, bent in horrific pain. Is this normal? Ray, I demand, my voice uncannily high. All my anger begins to focus on the man that coerced her into agreeing to do this. She stops yelling as quickly as she started, now convulsing as if she is having a seizure. Her face betrays pain. Tears running down her face in rivers. My tears soon join hers, making a puddle in the ground. We will know soon, Ray speaks finally, and I look up as if noticing him for the first time. Pure hate is in my features, and combined with a deadly inward beast to match. He is a walking corpse. I pull back my fist and punch him in the stomach with a mild version of my earthquake punch, causing him to stagger back. Soon he will probably be coughing up blood, one of the aftereffects of my hate-filled hits. I hate you, I say angrily, tears flowing profusely. I feel like a mess. Everything is falling apart. I know her movements are normal for a seer being converted, but I am still afraid. She can still die. I stagger back by her side as another scream rips through the air, wanting desperately to snatch her into my arms. Whispers of agony are in the air, enough so I can sense it, just beyond my abilities to change the hurt. The tears are coating her face now like a mask, running down her neck, her cheeks soaked. I wrinkle my nose as her smell turns black, repelling even. Ray staggers back a little also, noticing the skunk-like stench she now carries. Suddenly, her eyes glaze over, and she is completely still. My blood runs cold. You know you have killed her. I look steely into his large green eyes. She's going to be gone forever. I turn away and hold my head close to her heart. Only the faintest whisper of a heartbeat remains. The soft forest air turns cold, causing goosebumps to rise on my skin. What can I do? I have never felt so helpless. My mate soon will be dead. I could tell from the minute that I met Mona that she was special, so the reality of her imminent death hits me a lot harder than it originally would. She had a past with shifters. Although she tried to hide it. She also possessed a caring heart and desired to help others however she could. In a small corner of my mind, I thought Mona would never fail. That there was no chance of her dying through an awakening. I'm sure Ray believed this about her as well. And here she is, before me, taking her last breaths. I know it is truly too late for anything now, but I cannot help myself from trying to think of a way to save her. I try to think of any healing properties, such as plants or medicine, that we possessed at the mansion. Is there anything we can do? I ask Ray desperately. I grab Mona's hand as I ask him, and alarm enters me when I realize her fingers are as cold as ice. It feels as if I am touching a corpse. We can wait. Ray looks away, obviously torn by the sight before him and the possibility of having Mona arise as a spear, no matter how little the chances. Don't lie to me. Ray. Her awakening is failing. It is obvious to us both. It's not over yet, he protests shakily. It is easy to tell that he is starting to think otherwise. I'm not kidding, Ray. Tell me what I can do. We need to save her. My voice turns deadly, and Ray grows pale. A few minutes pass, filled with silence and anxiety. Xavier. I'm so sorry. True despair takes over, leaving nothing to tame my insanity. I must do something. I have to do something. It can't end like this. I take my pocket knife and slice my finger slightly. I can't bring myself to cut her, so I just hold it over her mouth, which is slightly open. When the first drop of my blood touches her lips, she shivers, almost gagging. Ray just stares at her and then me, dumbfounded. You idiot. He bitingly whispers, his words like poison. Is she going to live? Ray, I ask bitterly. Have you ever heard of something like this before? I can't think. I can't breathe. I can't live without her. Somehow. I must keep her with me. His words rip through the silence, condemning her. Never. It is only my tears now, racing down my skin like liquid fire, burning where it touches. Mona is still unmoving, her eyes closed. Her skin is like an assortment of bruises, fading in and out. Her hair is thickening, growing straighter past her back at an alarming speed. Somehow, she is growing taller, her legs lengthening. Why is this happening? Werewolf blood is what enhances the person's looks. Not the spear blood. Does this mean that this crazy scheme is working? We watch her in silence as she starts mild convulsions again, all the while her appearance changing rapidly. How can she have both symptoms? She can't convert into both a werewolf and a spear. That will surely destroy her. I lean back in the grass next to her, touching her fingers. Mona's fingernails are sprouting from short stubs into a perfect size, and then stopping abruptly. I haven't cut my fingernails in 37 years. I can't bear much more of this. It is eating at me, tearing me apart. The ground is wet behind my head, not that I care. It is probably just my tears, dancing across my face like an unnecessary amount of sweat. Ray just stands there, frozen. He is clueless. I can tell. No words amount to how angry I am at him. I am reduced to nothing because of her, and indirectly. Ray himself. She is finally still, after about 20 more agonizing minutes of these convulsions and morphing. Her chest is moving, breathing. It is a little bit different from the first time, for this time she is only sleeping. It is a wonder she has made it this far. My mate is strong. I wait endlessly for anything from her, for a response, a touch, or even a glance. Still there is nothing. It has been around an hour and a half of pure and utter torture for us both, and the clock ticks towards the eventual 2. It might take longer because of the effect of the werewolf blood. I don't know anything, and that is what's killing me. The minutes tick by as I bend my head into the grass, utterly defeated. I was stupid to think I could change anything with a few drops of werewolf blood. The result is still unknown. And leaning precariously towards the outcome I desperately do not want. I probably guaranteed her death, adding some blood like that. Why am I so stupid? Why couldn't these doubts have occurred before I applied the blood? Xavier Reyes' voice, soft and smooth, lingers over me. I barely notice as a soft, delicate hand deposits itself on my head, smoothing my azure hair. And then suddenly I realize whose hand that actually is. I lift my head, catching Mona's hand as it falls towards the ground. Squeezing it tightly. I use my hearing to listen to her heartbeats, starting back weakly, and then turning stronger with surprising force. Her eyes are still unopened, but a little smile is on the corner of her mouth. It is then that I give myself away to peace and the assurance she is so graciously giving me. Everything will be just fine. No matter what happens. Mona will be with me. Death just seems to love me, Mona. Scalding hot, unfamiliar blood is racing through my veins. This is not the first time I have wished for death, but this time. The desire is much, much stronger. Every breath I take allows icy cold air to enter my lungs, freezing my insides and battling the heat that is enveloping me. I experience the extreme burning. Then the excruciating cold. I am bathed in excruciating agony, every second pure torture. Thinking is impossible, hurt being the only emotion consuming my mind. My tears are like little ice pellets, dripping down my cheeks as I writhe about. Once again, an all too familiar sense of doom impends upon me, entering through the fire and ice. I am a lost cause. Death is here waiting once again. Why does he seem to want me so badly? Then, a splash of a soothing substance hits my tongue, slipping down my throat like melted chocolate. All tranquility it brings vanquishes, exploding in my stomach like fireworks, only accenting my suffering. What sort of medicine is this? It only makes things worse. Just let it take me. Let me succumb to the darkness. But a warm, deliciously strong body refuses to release its hold on my skin. Two strong hands latching onto my consciousness like suction cups. I desperately try to sink into the dark depths. Temporarily forgetting everything. What do I really have to return to? Not true love, a family, or even friendship. An infatuated werewolf doesn't count, by the way, although a sharp feeling stabs my stomach at the thought. Do I really want to leave him? Is deserting him what I really want? The forbidden question is now entertained by my delirious mind, and I am unable to avoid it. Do I love him? My heart pumping. I begin to regain my vigor after only thinking about him. His perfect, statuesque face dances in my memory, his sparkling emerald eyes peering in my thoughts. Everything about him ripples with strength and masculinity. A blush almost forces itself to my cheeks when I realize I am relishing the image. I quickly stuff my attraction and desire back into the corner of my mind, avoiding the disarming question at hand. I have only been with Xavier for a couple of days, yet he is affecting me so much, but it must be the effect of mating. I can't be in love, when only a short time before I had never even talked to a guy. Even though he is so enchantingly handsome, distracting me even in this state. I couldn't have let myself fade away to this alien emotion. I couldn't have already given in, after barely waging a fight. For some strange reason, I feel myself begin to lighten. The heat and heart-wrenching cold recedes, and an almost pleasurable experience snakes into my chest. My limbs feel weak and elastic-like, almost like they have just been stretched, my face likewise. It is like the relief you experience after a workout, weariness coupled with a raw satisfaction. The hands wrapped around me release, and I can feel a gaze searing my skin. Worry is emanating off the person, surrounding me like a blanket. At least somebody cares about me. Not quite thinking straight. My hand reaches up to calm the creature, man or beast, to lift the burden they are carrying. As I touch a head of hair, my hand nearly shrieks in delight at the pure luxury I am fingering. It is the smoothest hair I have ever felt, long and slightly wispy. Instantly, I realize who this person has to be. Maybe it won't be so bad to live a little bit longer. I hate to admit it, but he has already morphed into someone I will want live for. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. I wake to the sweet sound of birds chirping in the breeze. My eyes slowly adjust to the blinding light streaming through the window, my breathing deep and relaxed. Consciousness returns to me, and with it, remembrance. Last night. I almost died. Maybe I'm actually dead now, and don't realize it. Is this heaven? I shrug off the velvety covers, slipping my feet from the mattress to the cold, hard floor. My surroundings are exactly like the room the pack had given me, with a beautiful view of the forestry and wildlife. Maybe I am a ghost. Forbidden to enter the afterlife because I attempted to gain immortality. Padding to the doorway. I gaze at the hallway, a mirror image of the one at the place I am hesitant to call home. Haziness fills my vision, and I stumble along the walls in a random direction. I needed to find somebody. Anybody. To tell me where the crap I am. Unintelligible whispers are floating about, voices pounding. My head is reeling with strange sounds and thoughts, screams and laughter. My feet, however, continue on its unknown path, curiosity in each step. For some reason, I feel very different, and as I look down at my feet, questions fill me. Why are they so far away? Why are they a little bit bigger than I remembered? Walking nearer to my random destination, I begin to hear low murmurs, the same voices inside my head growing stronger. Once I focus, I can begin to detect words, a conversation flowing. But most of all is the smells. I can smell the dust, the air, and the ghastly smell of my clothes with sharpness and clarity. But even stronger is the aroma of 3 mysterious objects, each more breathtaking than the last. One is like peppermint and the other like a delicious, ripe banana. But the last is the one that is most wonderful, a strange combination of flavors I can't distinguish, yet intoxicating all the same. In an instant, I feel a strange bond to this smell, making it unlike the others. In a hurry, my feet begin to run with excitement, fleeing towards the source. Everything begins to savagely envelop my senses, a barrage of sound, smell, and breathtakingly rich sight. The light blinds me as I almost gallop into the sunlight, entering the garden. Red, blue and yellow mix to create a spectrum of colors, shown on the brilliant flowers. I barely realize that this is the garden. 3 figures are sitting in the warm grass, gazing into the baby blue sky. I walk up to the last figure, smiling warmly. I never thought I could feel this happy before. Xavier, I emit, my voice barely above a whisper. Strangely, it is as if I am singing, my words having a musical quality I used to envy in Xavier's voice. The magnificent man turns to me, his face devoid of emotion except for a small tear running down his face. His eyes slowly turn to look at me, and the others follow his gaze. Beautiful emerald eyes, streaked with such sorrow, morph immediately into pure amazement as he surveys me. They crawl over me, starting from my head to my toes, scanning me for reasons unknown. Then he finally speaks. "Mona, is that you?" he gasps. "You changed even more since I left you 30 minutes ago." Xavier grasps his head unbelievingly. "I can't even recognize you anymore, except by the smell." "What happened?" I ask curiously, fingering a strand of my red hair in my slender hands. It did seem to be much longer, stretching past my chest instead of cutting off at the shoulders. My nails aren't stumpy either, at a perfect French manicure length. Even my face feels different, more sharp and angular. "You didn't look in the mirror," the crystal-haired man beside him grins. "That's a shame. I'm so sorry." "Mona," a figure whirls into the garden, hurriedness in his steps. Ray slides up to me, past Xavier in the grass. "I didn't think of the risks involved when I tried to convert you. I should have told you." "Why are you still here?" Xavier immediately snarls at the almost identical werewolf. "You were supposed to leave by morning." Tension ripples between them, ice in the air. "I couldn't leave without apologizing to Mona," he says angrily. "The guilt would ruin me." "That's the point, idiot," Xavier snaps. "I don't want to look at you ever again, anyway. I have had enough." "Ray did nothing wrong," I fire at him. "I knew the risks. I made the choice. Ray shouldn't have to leave the pack because of me. I'm here, aren't I?" My words float in the breeze towards Xavier's unwilling ears. Indignation pierces me, emanating so everyone can see it. "But I almost thought you wouldn't be." Xavier stands up regally, and then reaches out with one finger and strokes my cheek. Passion erupts under his touch, boiling beneath my skin. I nearly choke at the sudden wave of desire that almost overwhelms me. Why does his touch affect me so? The werewolf sweeps me into a hug, which somehow seems gentler. His crushing embrace doesn't hurt like it sometimes does, only comforting me. Sparks of warmth erupt, and suddenly I feel safer than ever before. Is this what a true hug is supposed to feel like? I subconsciously close my eyes, swept away by his evident devotion. Usually I would feel angry at his easily displayed longing, but now, I don't really care. I almost lost him. Ooh, a teasing voice erupts from behind us. We get to watch a love scene. Hurriedly I jump away from him, suddenly aware of how my face had been moving closer to his. My lips are aching to be touched. Stinging with disappointment at the chance that was lost. Even my body is fighting me, begging me to give in to my lust. But I must be stronger. Jake laughs at my embarrassment, being able to see right through my guise. Look, he continues jeering. She's blushing. I cover my face with my hands, hoping that Xavier didn't catch my tomato-red cheeks. Wes is chuckling also. Ray rather hesitant to join in. He looks bedridden, bedraggled with sadness and annoyance. He doesn't seem to feel very guilty, disguising this strange fact under humility. I can almost spot a tidbit of triumph and pride searing through him as he looks at me, biting to be let through. I can tell Xavier is melting as he turns his gaze towards the accused, softening as he looks at the almost identical copy of his face. I am trying desperately to stare holes into Xavier's head, willing him strongly to accept the wily werewolf slumping beside me. Finally, almost regretfully, he nods. Ray lights up like a light bulb, racing back into the mansion like a little rabbit, a blur of energy. I smile up at Xavier with approval. So, Mona, Wes begins, smiling flirtatiously. What can you do? How do you feel as a spear? I only stare at him for a few moments, completely devoid of recognition. Remember, he probes, looking at me with concern. I'm not dead, I question softly, looking once more at my hands. They definitely seem real. But I can't be alive. Not after what I had been through the night before. Of course not, he laughs. You as alive as I am. Maybe my suffering was only a dream. Maybe I didn't truly experience the torture. What do you mean? What abilities do you have? Wes is relentless, buzzing with energy. Can you run super fast? I guess I am alive. Xavier notices my sudden awkwardness and glides to my side. His fingers reach for my hand, but I quickly snap it away before he is able to clutch it. Wes grins. Just run somewhere. Anywhere close by, he gestures to the wide outdoors. And think about getting there quickly. His instruction is clear as crystal, yet quite embarrassing. I don't want to run in front of these super werewolves. I'll look stupid. Xavier gives me a slight nudge, and I give it, starting off on a slow chug to a nearby tree. Dirt kicks into my face from my slow jog, and I begin to wish for a hat. Pick it up, Jake calls, laughing as I start to zoom with my strangely not stumpy legs towards the goal. My breathing is heavy and labored as I run towards the bark, and it seems to get further away with each stride. Another second and Xavier is by my side, laughing quietly. You don't have super speed, he informs me. That's for sure. You did run about 40 miles per hour though, which is pretty fast. 40. Struck silent with wonder. I let him lead me back to the others. Cool, Jake smiles. You've improved, though you are not quite super. Strength, Wes suggests slyly, and I have to grin. There is no way I am going to arm wrestle one of you. You guys will drive my hand through the table and into the ground. There is no way. What about that tree? Jake points at the gigantic trunk a couple feet away. Try to break it, I stare at him, dubious. Me, break that monster. I walk towards it, and encircle it with my slender arms. With force I didn't know I had. I squeezed it tightly, causing cracks to run through it. But I can't do more, no matter how hard I tug. Not super strength, either. Wes notes, pulling me from the plump tree. What do you think? Mona, his beautiful green eyes are sparkling, so similar to the ring on my finger. Well, I can smell, I shrug. And see far away, definitely that is a plus, although I am rather confused. Why are they testing me for werewolf abilities, when Ray converted me into a spear? He told me that the only thing a spear can do is conjure spirit spears and live forever. I would have to build my own strength. The wind brushes past me as Xavier surprisingly nods. That's one, he smiles. And her appearance has definitely changed, so that makes two. I examine my slender fingers, and perfect toes. My appearance changed, I finally ask, trying to make the pieces come together. Why? I thought that only happens to werewolves. Well, see, Xavier tries to explain. I sort of intervened at your awakening. He looks down at the soft green grass, almost seeming ashamed. It was failing. Failing. I was going to die. Alarm sears through me at his words. You were this close. He holds two fingers barely more than a hairsbreadth apart. To dying. His face grows slightly red, sadness washing over him like a flood. The air feels even colder than when Ray and Xavier were standing across from each other, chilling me to the bone. Then what? I ask. I used a drop of my blood, he says slowly. And tried to convert you into a werewolf. Doom impends upon me.